Suddenly Sunday with Swang is joining me today as my guest. He is another panelist on our town hall, or Another Way town hall for the arts,
Yes.
which is next Wednesday at 6 o'clock, right on the heels of the new year. It's going to be at a WeWork in Soho, but you can get all the information on my website, showgoesonproductions.com, under events. So I'm really excited to speak with Swang. You are representing the music industry because
Oh
you have
God.
but because you've been a working musician in NYC
Mm,
since the Hepcats started to swang.
that's right.
Yeah, and you also are a music producer. Your company is RSP Experiment, and you record exclusively to tape. Is that
That's
correct?
right.
Digital
Yes,
or
indeed.
analog? Good. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
You also, my favorite is for 5 years you've been hosting New York's best open mic, according to Time Out New York and Sonic Bids, at least for the last.
Actually, I think it was NYC.com and Sonic Bids who did
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Close enough. Okay,
But
good.
that's all right. We love Time
Yeah,
Out New York too. They've
yeah,
they've given us
exactly.
some props as
They'll
well.
come around. They'll come around. Um, and then, of course, you not mention that you are the front man for Sly and the Family Stone, which is so exciting, and which means you're also perpetually on tour. And if you haven't,
A lot, yeah. In
yeah.
fact, I just got back into town at literally 2 o'clock this morning. We did our last show of 2018 was in Reno, Nevada. So
Oh, nice. Okay,
yeah, our
good.
last
Reno
show.
needs a little Sly in its life, I
No,
think.
no, no. The more the better, right?
Yeah, word. And if you haven't seen this man perform live, I guarantee it will blow your mind. So you're an amazing
In the
musician,
best way.
producer, performer, everything. So before I really dig in, is there anything I missed? Oh, you said you're working on a new project for YouTube, or with.
Yeah, RSP TV is coming in spring 2019. I don't have an exact date yet, but it'll be hopefully closer to early spring rather than summer. But
Awesome.
a lot of great new content, behind the scenes stuff, on the road with the Family Stone, in the studio with various projects I'm working with, and the artists that I'm working with, all of whom are indie artists. So yeah, it's a lot of really cool stuff in the offing for
Yeah, that's
2019.
really exciting. Okay,
Nice.
cool. Let's dig right in. My first question for you is really, as working in the music industry, how have you been for so long? How have you been able to navigate the industry without selling your soul,
Mm.
compromising your art, or going broke? And if you have, how talk to us about that? How has that experience been?
Okay, it goes back a long ways, so I'll try to condense it as best I can for sake of time. When I started, in fact, 2018, September of 2018, it was a personal celebration for me because that marked 20 years of me as a professional full time. For the
Wow,
6 years that preceded that, I was professional part time, but enough about that.
yeah,
Um, but navigating is something that you kind of learn on the way. You have to kind of the currents change, the ebb and flow changes, so you have to be able to adjust and be pliable. That's the one thing, maybe the first thing that I learned is that
mm-hmm.
you know um, have a plan, have an approach, have a way to keep the heat on and keep your belly full as best as possible. Even if it means a day job. Thankfully, hasn't meant one for me, but if necessary, get that paycheck and
Absolutely.
get the rent paid, get the low hanging fruit, so to speak, and then invest in yourself.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
in these days, anybody with just even a little bit of extra left over at the end of the month can reinvest in whatever their vision is and maintain that vision. Navigating.
Yeah. A lot
I
of
found
people
a
are
way.
afraid of investing in themselves. So I just wanted to really highlight that point. I think that's a lot of people think that they shouldn't have to invest in themselves, that somebody else should be doing that for them. Does that sound like?
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, there are ways to approach people and get them excited to invest in your project or invest in what you are, looking to accomplish artistically. But it doesn't absolve you or excuse you from doing
Absolutely.
the majority of the work yourself. You know, in these days, if you're going to call yourself indie, that means you're an entrepreneur. You know, it's inherent with the the self um, the self-employment, the self motivation that you kind of have to take on that responsibility. You have to wear many hats. You are the record label in the case of the musician. You are the PR person. You are the marketing person. You know, you are the team, so to speak. So
Yeah.
and if you do that the right way, and if you make it a 24/7 um, uh, um, investment in yourself, and get other people, in turn, other people will get excited about it.
And
It will
that's
be
what worked for
very
you.
difficult. Yeah, I mean that I came up in the golden age of hip hop. That's what hip hop was all about, at least back then. Before it became this,
Right, right.
the thing that took over the world. It was a grassroots effort by
Yeah.
people who were like, we don't really want to wait. We don't have the kind of time to wait for a record label to come
Right. They
knocking
really
at our
want to
door and
listen.
grab us and give us, a 6-figure check. We're gonna, we're gonna make this music on our own. We're gonna self-finance it. We're gonna sell it out of the trunks of our cars, and then they'll come to us.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's exactly what happened. There's no reason that the indie artists these days can't do the same.
I agree, and that's part of the whole concept of hashtag another way is
Indeed.
finding a way that works for you individually, and that is a balance of finances, maybe a day job or whatever it is, and investing in yourself and being able to get your work out there. I think actually the original days of when hip hop was just emerging is a perfect example.
Yeah, it's the template for everything that's happening now, post internet, post 21st century,
Exactly.
post digital revolution. All of these things happened before that. So if there's anything that, if anything, it's become a little bit more encouraging for the
Yeah,
young artists
because
in
there's more
this,
platforms.
period of history. Yeah.
Yeah, which actually kind of brings us right into my next question, which is about the work you do in analog, because it's really a throwback to,
Hmm.
the way it used to be done. But what's interesting actually is that my other panelist, Simone, had mentioned that she ran into a bunch of artists who were selling tapes at their shows, musicians, and people were actually buying. So you may actually be ahead of the curve by kind of doing a throwback. Why analog? What's that all about for you?
That was so planned. I planned that. I'm
Yeah,
so
you were
brilliant.
the leader. You led it.
God.
I also
Why
think
analog?
that show 13 Reasons Why on Netflix that is about high schoolers using tapes. I think that.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my God. Isn't that
Yeah,
crazy? Okay.
yeah,
Well, why analog? Very good question. I'll try to be succinct once again.
yeah.
Two real reasons. One, um, we are logged in all the time. You know, we get up in the morning, we're logged in. We wake up in the middle of the night, we're checking our emails, we're looking at these phones, we're looking at a computer screen, we're dialed into this matrix all the time. I love the idea of walking into a recording studio, bringing an artist in there that I'm producing a record for, and we're in there for 10 hours at a time, and no one sees a computer screen.
Word, because that's what music's about, isn't it?
Yeah, it's time to turn that off and turn this on
Yeah.
and start thinking
And
creatively.
this, your heart.
And the heart, yes, exactly. All of that, and that's when I use the word analog, a lot of people's immediate reaction is to think about like a piece of gear or a tape machine. We use all of those things, but when I talk about analog, I talk about human interaction, the
Mm.
human element. Uh, in the digital world, a lot of things are very much the same. In the analog world, no two sounds are the same, no two people are the same,
Yeah,
no two
there's a
brains
nuance.
think alike, no two sets of ears hear the same things. So I like the inherent workflow that brings. We're not going to fix this drum part later. We're going to play it right now. We're
Word.
not going to fix this vocal part later. We're not going to fix this horn part later. We're not going to adjust these strings later. We're going to get it right now, and we're going to bring in musicians who are willing to, jump off the high board, so to speak, and do that. I also think the secondary reason is I actually think analog tends to sound better for the music that I produce.
A lot of people do
I
that.
love electronic dance music, and I love those beats, and I love those low ends. I would be probably the wrong person to produce it because I came of age during a different time and learned a different, the values that I espouse are a little different than what you'll hear on your typical digitally produced track or song or work. So I tend to work in analog because I think it suits the music better in terms of the oral aesthetic, if you will. So those are
Cool.
really the two primary reasons. I like the workflow of it, and I like the sound of it.
Yeah, and actually I love the little nuances of like if there is like of not fixing the drum section or the strings because that gives it personality. I know that's
Human beings
terrifying.
played it. That's the reason it sounds that way.
But yeah, I kind of love that. Cool.
Hmm.
And then lastly, I really wanted to ask you too, as your role, if you will, as the host of Open Mic, I really see you as a gatekeeper because you're engaging with artists from all over the world because we are in New York City, which has such an eclectic music history, and because you've been deemed New York's best open mic, you attract this amazing talent from all over the world, and they are looking to you as the host to really set them up and introduce them, if you will. And
Yeah.
you, I think, go above and beyond in really helping these artists find the right note, finding the right key, or whatever it is. And so I just wondered if you could speak for a moment about maybe trends that you see in artists nowadays versus artists when you started out. And I mean, that could be like a whole podcast, I feel like. But
Sure. Yeah. That's a pretty loaded thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool to be a gatekeeper, I think.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's that's a responsibility that I wasn't anticipating. But the open mic night has turned into something that's really attracting many more people than I originally thought. I thought we'd have our little tight knit, 16, 17, 20 people at the most.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
20 people, those are the people that, for whatever reason, we don't have time to fit in
Yeah.
on your average Monday now. So my there's some things that I've noticed about the change, and one of the things that ties directly into hashtag another way is that you have a whole generation that's already come of age, are in their mid 20s, who don't know a life without an internet and don't know a life without
No.
before. I mean, I'm old enough to remember a time when you really needed that record label contract, and you really, not that you don't now. I mean, if that's the route you want to take, there are many different ways to the same destination. But many of the artists I encounter now are in their early 20s or mid 20s, and they're not even thinking that way. Their whole goal is to remain indie and to remain independent and remain their own boss and dictate the terms of their entire career. They're not even thinking along the lines of, well, I'm just doing this until I'm making demos until somebody at so and so records hears it, and then hopefully they'll give me my shot. No one's even thinking
That's
that way.
promising, I think.
And of course, we all know now that when I came of age in the business, as I knew it growing up, you made a record and you went out on tour to promote it. Now it is flipped completely 180 degrees.
That's true.
You are going on tour, so your record's going to promote the tour.
Fund your record. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You're going to put that record out or put it together, as a means, to promote the fact that, hey, we're going out on the road, or we're playing a bunch of shows. Come and see us. I don't know if everybody is necessarily thinking that linearly about it, but it is the approach that they're taking, because maybe they just don't even know another way. Hashtag.
Right. Well, nice. Well, and also it's part of what you were saying, have a plan. So if I think a lot of people are doing it, they don't realize they're doing it. And part of having a plan is actually just realizing.
Yeah, and my, as an older guy in the business, my whole mindset has to change. I'm still working on that, but organically it's happening as a result of being, so close and having conversations with artists at open mic night when they come in, and they are literally coming from all over the world. And this is a global phenomenon that's happened. The shift in the paradigm is, not just something that's happening in New York City or in the hubs, so to speak. It's happening everywhere. And, people in New York City are communicating with people in Finland or, Germany or in
open mic performance back home.
Yeah, I mean, I saw one recently. These two guys came from South Africa, and the first thing they did was set up their camera on the bar. And I'm thinking, okay, well, they're just filming this to put on their website or put on their Facebook page. Turns out they were broadcasting live to 40,000 people in South Africa right from our little open mic night, and
Oh
I'm
my
thinking,
God, that's
this is where we are now.
awesome.
Yeah, isn't this is the
See,
new
that's
normal.
why they call you gatekeeper, because you introduced them.
Well, listen, I'm happy to provide the platform,
Yeah,
but they're the artists. They have the hard jobs to do. I'm
yeah,
there to accompany and help direct the
yeah.
proceedings. But me mainly, we are nothing more. I tell people all the time with this open mic jam session thing, the way it's taken off, we are nothing more than the end product of all of these things coming together. And building a community was really important to me. I wasn't shutting anybody down.
Right.
Everyone was going to get their chance. Everyone was going to get an opportunity to get better and meet musicians who've been doing it for a long time, like myself and my colleagues there, and have an opportunity to interact and play with other musicians, which is part of the con of the internet age, is that people are sort of at home broadcasting to 3,000 people,
Connect,
but don't necessarily.
but
Yeah, the communicative aspect is a little different. So when I was growing up, if you wanted to play with other musicians, you met in somebody's garage somewhere or in the basement and drove mom and dad crazy. But you learned a lot more that way, because it turns out, the bass player might be a little bit ahead of the game, with regard to development than you might be. And, so that's one of the other things that I'm noticing about open mic night. You asked the question. So, it's that when they come in, they can be intimidated by just the idea of working with other musicians, because
yeah.
up to that
Well,
point,
especially
been
you
doing
guys,
it on their
because
own.
you're all phenomenal musicians. So that is a little intimidating. But I think
Yeah,
that's one of the things that sets you apart is from other open mics, anyways, and maybe even as an artist, is that you are so open and inclusive, and community is really important to you.
it's the
And
most
that's
important
so
thing.
important.
Yeah, and this goes right back to, well, some of the conversations you and I have had. Emily and I have had some really deep
I
conversations
know,
that have
that's why you're on the panel.
lasted far longer than time will permit, either here or at the actual panel. But
Yeah.
the the interesting thing is this: your part of your goal that really resonated with me was dispelling the myth and sort of getting rid of all the clouds, or the demystifying is your word that you use. Um, the industry and how people should interact with one another. And part of
Yeah.
I think my role in that, as a producer and as the host, as the music director, and even with the Family Stone, who travels around playing a lot of festivals, and the age range of these festivals is from, quite old, but to very young.
So
And
cool.
they're seeing musicians play together, and nothing's tracked, nothing's pre-recorded, and I think people might be intimidated by that if they're under a certain age and used to working a certain way. So I bring them to open mic night and I say, hey, look, do a song with the band. Do a song that you wrote with the band, something you've never done before. Play this music with four other musicians who have never played it before in their lives and have to be and are forced into a position to be musical, as musical as possible, with a piece of music they've never heard or rehearsed before.
Yeah.
And that's part of the demystifying effect, is
Yeah.
that you can actually do this. Just because you can't be afraid to do something just because you've never done it before.
Word. I agree. And I love it. I'm 100% agree with you. I think that's part of the magic that's happening every Monday night at your open mic. And also it ties right into exactly what the town hall is, because the town hall, by definition, is about community and bringing your community together and listening to each other. So I'm honored to have you on the panel. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me.
My pleasure.
Famous last words.
Last words. We'll see you at.
Before you give your last words, hold it. I want to go out with your last words. So I want to one more time give the big promo that the town hall is next Wednesday at 6 p.m. at a WeWork in Soho. All the information is on my website, showgoesonproductions.com, under events. You can RSVP on the meetup page. You can RSVP on Facebook. We will be streaming it. Please join us and share your voice. Last words from Swang, representing the music industry.
Happy New Year, everybody. Here's to 2019. Analog lives.
Nice. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
See you on the 2nd, Emelina. Thanks. Cheers.
Yep. Cheers.